Hello, my quilting friends. My name is Leah Day, and welcome to episode 83 of the podcast. And today I want to share a recap from Quilt Festival. I just got back yesterday, and I had an amazing time at the show. So that's what I'm going to be sharing today, just my thoughts and things I picked up and, just observations from being at the show. And this is one of the biggest quilt shows, if not the biggest quilt show of the year. It was definitely an international event. I met so many different people from Israel and Argentina and Brazil. It was amazing. So I'm really looking forward to sharing my thoughts with you about this. And what am I doing as I share today? I am shooting photos of the quilt blocks for next year. So this is kind of a little bit of a sneak peek of our Leah's Friendship Quilt-Along that will start, hopefully, cross my fingers, on Thanksgiving Day. So yeah, I need to shoot some photos in a really quick hurry. And so I just figured, hey, I'm out here doing this, having a good time, just kind of relaxing as I shoot these photos, so I might as well turn on the camera and share the podcast with you guys. I did this a little while ago. I think it was the episode that I did an interview with Amy Johnson, and that worked out really well. I was shooting the photos for the Explore Walking Foot Quilting book, and that ended up working out pretty good. It was a little haphazard, but it worked. And if you hear beeping and clicking, that is the camera. So it's not anything going wrong or anything like that. It is just the camera. And yeah, I'm just enjoying myself, getting all this knocked out. It's been fun. Dad really was very, very helpful on this quilt-along. He really had that, I had the concept for using up the whole stash, but Dad really took the time to kind of start playing and cutting things up and slicing and dicing, and then just starting to play with the blocks and the arrangements. And then I'd come in and kind of rearrange things a little bit and tweak it a little bit, and then Dad would piece something together. And it was like that. That's how we designed this entire quilt-along, which is the first time I've ever designed anything like this. A lot of times before, in fact, actually all the quilt-alongs before, I would sit down with graph paper and graph it all out, and have a very different system. And I don't know if it was necessarily as creative for that reason. I would, I'd sometimes get, oh, well, that's going to be a weird cut block, or that's, I would kind of stop myself from embracing the weirdness and randomness that can sometimes be scrappy style quilting. And, especially when I'm always in the back of my head, I'm thinking of writing the pattern and what that's going to entail, that would sometimes just, I don't know, it would just affect the whole situation. This is the first quilt-along where it just kind of came together. It was just kind of a fluid process between Dad and I having a good time and making one block at a time. And then we actually made way more than we needed. I have another 3 or 4 blocks inside. They're not all full size. But I just kind of pulled from my favorites and decided on which ones were going to be the final blocks. And yeah, and then just made sure that they were all the same size and they're all working out good. And then I'm now working on coming up with the quilt math and figuring out how many pieces you need to cut. And yeah, right now, these are so linty. Most of these blocks have been pieced and then, stacked up. And then Dad took them to his house for a little while because he was working up some math too. And yeah, and then now I've taken them back here and they kind of sat on the shelf for a little while. So yeah, quilt blocks really can get really messy and dirty in any place, but I seem to be especially bad about keeping things tidy. So I'm going to have to lint roll each of these blocks. And then because they've been folded, I need to press them all too. So I'm pressing with a pressing cloth here just to make sure the blocks are nice and flat before they get their photo shoot. It feels like a little photo shoot here for my blocks. It feels kind of nice, and I'm really loving these. This is actually our first block that we're gonna make together in December, and I showed you that one last week. This one, it's just a scrappy star, super, super pretty. And I'm excited about this. Dad started stacking all of my 5-inch squares. I don't know if you listened to last week's podcast, basically taken my entire stash and sliced it into 5-inch squares. So Dad started the process of pulling the 5-inch squares, and we're gonna make packs of 30 squares, and there's no repeats. Although if you buy multiple packs, and I'm thinking I'm gonna limit it, I hate to say it, but I am gonna probably limit it to 1 per person, simply because we're only ending up with about 130 packs. So I want as many people to be able to get a pack of my stash as they want. So I think, yeah, we're gonna limit it to 1 per person. There's no repeats. How we're breaking it up is we're doing solids and prints together, because really those fabrics feel identical. And then we're gonna do batiks in their own separate pack. And we haven't started the batiks yet, so we may end up with more. Obviously we will end up with more, but it's not tons, and it's a limited thing. So that's why I'm thinking, yeah, we'll limit it to 1 pack per person. And, even if you don't get a pack of squares, it's still going to be a beautiful quilt. You could get together with some friends and trade squares. Even just 5 squares traded with some friends would be something cool to think about. If you're part of a guild or any sort of quilt group, get in touch with us and let us know. Josh and I love for groups and quilt shops to run the program and have a good time together, piecing and quilting every month. And then that would be a nice way of organizing it, so everybody on a certain day brings in so many squares and then you all trade. So that's an idea too. It's kind of like a cookie exchange. You all exchange little squares. And I was thinking about it, sometimes I think with some scrappy themed quilts, you could get really technical, like you need so many lights and so many mediums and so many darks. And I can promise you this is not that technical. Because when I went to pull squares and get the ball rolling, it was just literally like, what's on top? What's on top of the bins? Grabbed the squares that I liked, and then we ran out, grabbed some more, we ran out, grabbed some more. There's been no system of color picking for these blocks. It is extremely simple. And the way I've been working on the diagrams is actually adds 2 colors, so if you don't want to do scrap, if you don't like the idea of messing around with 5-inch squares, then that's fine. You can just do solids. You can do a solid red and black, or white and black, or red and white. That's a classic. Red and white is a classic combination. I'm actually thinking next year for 2020, I'm going to do something with red and white, because I just really like those colors combined together. So I'm just taping this up, getting it on the wall, and some of these blocks turned out a little bit more wonky than others, but as you know, that'll quilt out. I don't know, this one I think might have gotten water on it or something. It's just looking a little bit deranged here on the wall, so I'm gonna tape it down and get it nice and straight and square. But yeah, the math comes out right, and once I get it basted and quilted, then it's going to look great. And I am really excited because my squares are going to go together into a king-sized quilt. So this is going to be a quilt I get to enjoy on my bed through the winter time. I have a king, the Salsa Verde quilt that I made for the Quilting a King on Your Home Machine workshop. That particular quilt, I put a really light cotton batting in the middle. So that is my summertime quilt. That's on my bed every summer, from like May until, right now, until November. But I needed something a little bit thicker, and maybe wool or maybe a cotton poly blend or something like that for wintertime. Right now I have just like a fluffy down duvet on my bed, and I liked something to go on top of that. That's actually not warm enough for me. I really like a nice cozy warm bed. I keep the house pretty cold at night. Last night I was tucking James in, just like kind of wandered in his room just to make sure he was okay. I had been gone, so I wanted to hug and a kiss. And he was kind of all snuggled up and wearing his robe in his bed. I was like, do you need another quilt? Do you need another blanket? And he was like, yeah, I do. I was like, dude, you're 11. You can go in your closet and grab something if you need it. But yeah, I had fun. I snuggled him up and put a few big quilts on him. I put the puff quilt on him, which is still, one of his favorite things. So that makes me feel really good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this being my new king, which means every block I'm going to piece and quilt twice. So far we only have the one set pieced, so I'll need to piece another set in a hurry. That's okay, I've got plenty of time. And then I'm going to quilt each block once on my home machine and then once on my long arm. And I was telling people about this at the festival, and a lot of people had a really good reaction to that. And I don't want you to feel like you have to have a long arm. You don't. You can do all of these designs on your home machine. You can do all the designs on your long arm. You know, it's pretty much, you can, oh, there it went. You can quilt it either way. It doesn't matter at all. So I just want that to be clear. You don't have to have any particular special machine. And I was already starting to play around on the flight. I was starting to play around with my quilting design ideas, and I'm leaning towards a lot of straight lines, I'll be honest. And I think the main reason is this is just so scrappy, and there's so many different colors, and there's so many different fabrics that we need to tame it down. It's on the level of just a little bit overwhelming, and it's not wanting to stay on the wall. It's quite warm in here. That's why I'm in a t-shirt. I have my ceramic heater set up in the crafty cottage now, and it is, by this time of the day, it's like 3 or 4 o'clock, it is toasty. Yeah, to the point where, you know, if I'm feeling a little chilly inside and, you know, feeling like I need to bundle up, I just come out here. This is my favorite time of the year to be filming stuff and making videos and hanging out in the crafty cottage, because it's just so nice and warm. In the summer, you know, it's impossible to really control the temperature and keep it cool. But in this time of the year, you know, wintertime, I love being out here. So this is perfect. Yeah, so it's just a little bit muggy, which is why my tape isn't sticking to the wall all that well. So some of these are going to be taped up, and I'm going to have to shoot the photos a little bit quick in order to get all of them. Yeah, so it was kind of a crazy week. You know, I just had a lot to do right up before I left for Quilt Festival, and kind of, you know, shot tutorials in a hurry, got things edited, had things scheduled, which was good, and then, you know, kind of left in a hurry, had a great time at the show, and then got back, and I was really happy because 2 days at the show was just about absolutely perfect. It was just the perfect length of time to be away. I didn't feel like I was gone so long that things were falling apart at home. Not that they would. I gotta give my guys credit. They, you know, they know how to keep the house going just fine on their own. But you know what I mean? Just, you know, things starting to just kind of get out of hand as far as, you know, being gone so long. And I had projects ongoing, you know, just things that I wanted to take care of. I've got the treadle cabinet. I really want to do a layer of lacquer, and it's a pretty day-to-day. So I'm hoping if I can get all these photos shot today, then I can go out and spray some lacquer on that tabletop and be able to get that knocked out. So it's like, you know, all those little projects and stuff. So 2 days gone was just about exactly right. And I'm glad for that. But one thing I left, I have not yet shot. I miss Bunny. I did her body, and we learned that last week, but I haven't done her dress tutorial yet. And so that might be another week or so before I have that one. I can shoot that one. My focus 100% is this quilt along, 100%, because I really want this to come out for Thanksgiving. And so I've got to do a lot of quilt math. I've got to double and triple check myself to make sure all of my diagrams and everything is right, because this is going to include not just, you know, one throw size quilt, which is what we've always had. This pattern, this first block pattern, is also going to include the, you know, all the different sizes, fabric estimations for all the sizes from crib to king. And it also, because it's kind of like, well, this is the getting us started, it's also going to include all of the quilt as you go technique, which I'm going to do with diagrams and fabric cutting for that too. So all that's going to be taken care of from block 1, and I'm not repeating that in any other blocks. It's going to be block 1. You know, that's really, it sets the store for everything, and teaches you the technique, gets you all the math that you're going to need. And that makes the most sense. Now, that means that it's the most amount of work in order to put it together. And I just want to make sure that all that's solid. So that is my number one absolute focus this week. And then we're going to Charleston over the weekend to do an early Thanksgiving. And we did this last year and it worked out super, super good. So my sisters live in Charleston and they've got lots of kids. And we come down and one of my sisters hosts, and then I do the turkey and the stuffing. And they might do a few sides, but really like the kind of the serious food I take care of. And that really takes things, kind of lightens their load a little bit, which is nice. I enjoy it because I enjoy cooking and I enjoy cooking with Josh. Josh always gives me a hand. So that's a lot of fun. And James enjoys hanging out with his cousins and, just having a good time with family. So that's what we're going to be doing this weekend. So I'm on the plane, or it's like right before I get on the plane, and I'm looking at the days left between now and Thanksgiving. And I think I was looking at the dates on the 10th. And I was like, okay, well, Thanksgiving is this day. I have this many days. Yay. And then I was like, no, I'm going out of town for, to go to Charleston. And I'm doing this. And I'm doing that. And then slowly that time started to shrink up and shrink up and shrink up. And that's the thing. It was really nice that I actually took the time to look at a calendar and really budget my time, because once I realized how everything was going to break down, it really helped me get focused on what needed to be done on any particular day. And that was really, really helpful. Sometimes it's kind of like you can assume or think that you have more time than you have, and then all of a sudden go, oh my gosh, I need to hurry. And then, kind of it's a rush to the finish, and I don't really want to have to rush this. I want to be able to take my time. But it just let me know that pretty much as soon as I got off the plane, I would need to just work on this and only this. And that's cool. That's exactly what I want to work on. So Miss Bunny's dress and her bloomers, her panties, those tutorials might be a little bit later, might be into December. And that's okay. It's definitely one of those situations where you've got everything that you need in the pattern. So hopefully you'll give it a try. If you're really wanting to make a Miss Bunny and get her all dressed up nice, then, definitely just read the pattern carefully and get started. And just know that that tutorial is going to be coming just as soon as I get this priority project done and finished up. Oh, here we go. Got another block up. And with all of these, you might be wondering about my system. So I'm shooting on a DSLR camera. This is something that I learned for my book on walking foot quilting. And at the time, it was just such a struggle. It was like, oh my gosh, I have to take all this time in order to learn this new technique and learn how to use this complicated camera. And I really, I was not necessarily resentful of it, just it made me very anxious. But then when I priced out having somebody else do the photography for me, couldn't afford it. It was, they were wanting $3,000-$4,000 to shoot, and I needed hundreds of photos. That's the thing. You need hundreds of photos for a book. And so it was kind of okay, these are all falling off the wall. It's just too warm in here. I'm going to need to get my regular masking tape out here. So I looked at it as like, okay, I can spend several $1,000s to pay somebody else to do the photos one time, or I can pay just a few $100, buy a camera, learn how to use it, and then I'll be able to use that skill forever. And I'm so glad that I made that decision, because otherwise I'd be paying someone to take these photos. I would be out again. And this is a skill that has paid off time and time again. The photos in the Miss Bunny pattern, I shot all of those myself as well. So I'm just really thankful for that. Yeah, so I just had to open a window. That is getting quite warm in here. So yeah, now I want to tell you a little bit about Quilt Festival and how all that went. It was so much fun. It was such an adventure. And all right, I'm going to go turn off the camera and go get my regular masking tape and stick these blocks on the wall with some serious stuff. So that one just bit the dust. I'm having a really tough time getting these blocks to actually stay on the wall. So I just ran inside and grabbed some gaff tape. This is the serious stuff. I probably will only need 4 pieces of this stuff and for all the rest of the blocks because it's that heavy duty. It's just a super sticky tape that doesn't leave a sticky residue or anything. It's just a lot harder core. So yeah, I'm glad I went inside and grabbed this stuff. Okay, so Quilt Festival, number 1, so much fun and totally worth attending. I really feel like, I've done Quilt Market and stuff, and, that kind of has its own thing. That's an industry trade show that's really business to business. And it doesn't really hold a candle to what Quilt Festival is. It was just so much fun. It was so much fun to see so many quilters from around the world. I was getting hugs from Israel and Argentina and where else? Brazil, just so many different places. Costa Rica, yeah, there was. I got a card from someone from Costa Rica who has a quilt shop there, and she's like, I heard your podcast with Luis Sanchez, and that was really cool. I said, Luis, you've got to go and hang out at this quilt shop. So, and it was just really great to meet quilters, that have followed us for years. Some people were like, how old is James now? And kind of almost fell over when I told him that he was almost 12, which is kind of hard to believe, even for me. And yeah, it was just really fun to see everybody and talk about free motion quilting and talk about long arm quilting and the whole 9 yards of that. And that was good. It was really good for me to see that side of the quilting industry, and that's really the biggest show I've ever been to. The next biggest show really wasn't big at all in comparison. I went to Knoxville when AQS had a show in Knoxville, Tennessee, and that would have been 2010-ish. So yeah, long time ago, and a much, much smaller show. And yeah, it really blew me away. Not only the size, but just how many people were there, and the aisles were packed. It was really, really busy through, the 2 days I was there on Thursday and Friday, and both days it was almost wall-to-wall people. It was really, really busy. And that was interesting. Just hearing what everyone at the Grease Company booth said. If you are wanting to go and you are not wanting crowds, then you should go on Sunday. Sunday is always kind of the calmest day to go to Quilt Festival. So keep that in mind. If you are also an introvert like me and don't like crowds, then Sunday is your day to go to Quilt Festival. So there we go. The gaff tape is working. I'm super happy. Okay, so what did I pick up? So I took a little bit of time to go around to the booths, not a lot. Really I was there to hang out with Grease Company and to hang out and play with frames and do that kind of 9 yards. So I spent most of my time hanging out with Grease Company, but a little bit of time here and there, especially in the afternoon when things have started to slow down just a little bit after 4:30. Took a little bit of time just to wander around and saw a lot of really cool things. It was interesting to me, and I don't know if you've ever picked up on this, a lot of booths will have a particular look, a particular style, whether the owner, the quilter that owns that booth and that company really likes that traditional country look or that kind of bright, vibrant, batik look. It was just interesting going through seeing all of the various styles. And it was also interesting to pick up on what was the most popular based on how many people were packed in the booth, so I saw a lot of the, darker country kind of style, saw a lot of those types of booths. I saw a lot of, it was funny, I saw a lot of like relaxation aids where they'd set up chairs and then had like massagers on multiple people's necks or massagers on their feet, different things like that. So that was kind of cute. And I saw a lot. There was a couple booths that did all red work. It was just wall-to-wall red work designs. And that one wasn't very busy. There was another one that was all, looks like hand-embroidered Christmas stockings. And that one was not very busy, but it looked like she was doing, she had a lot of nice kits, that kind of thing. Kitting seemed like the thing more than anything else. My observation, at least, was not many people sell fabric off the yard at Quilt Festival, and I think that's a good thing. It's just time consuming to try and sell yards and yards of fabric. You have to have a whole huge table to cut it. Most of the booths that I saw with bolts, it just seemed like that would be really time consuming or really challenging. Most things were pre-cut or kitted. And I admit, I went and got some kits, some fun things just to play with that I really liked. As far as other quilters that I met, I'm not going to name names just because I have some, it was just some interesting observations that I picked up. One quilter in particular, I've known about this person for years. I've been kind of a secret admirer of their work. But it was really interesting. Sometimes you don't want to meet your heroes, you know what I mean? And this was one of those situations where maybe I shouldn't have met my hero. And it's not like they were my hero, but just simply, someone that, I just kind of, I had seen as I built my business and kind of looked at them and said, oh, what are they doing? That kind of thing. And it was interesting. And maybe it is just a sheer thing of, this is a show coming after Quilt Market, and a lot of business owners, if they've gone to both, they're exhausted. So it definitely could be some of that involved in this. But this particular person just seemed to have no energy, like none, and was just kind of existing at the show, almost like they were being forced. I don't know. It was just kind of odd. And I just did not feel any energy from that person. And it was just a reminder to me to always be mindful of that, mindful of how I'm feeling. If I'm not feeling it, if I just really cannot do the people thing, I can't even fake it till I make it, then maybe I should not be going. I don't know. It was just odd. And it was one of those things where it almost made me a little bit sad. Because I think that, especially being in and doing something for years, and I kind of have been feeling this little bit like I need a shake up. I need to do something, not necessarily different, but just I need to shake things up a bit because I've been doing this for 10 years, and I don't want to risk trying to just falling into the same pattern, the same kind of, okay, here we go, we're going to do the same thing again. It's like, new challenges, new things, new perspectives, new projects. And I've been reading a really good book that I really have been enjoying that talks about embracing uncertainty. And I really like that concept. We don't know what's going to happen, but we try to be constantly looking ahead and predicting the future. And the simple fact of the matter is we can't, but we try to because that makes us feel safer or happier. And embracing that uncertainty is a good thing, and maybe if things have just gotten dull and going to that show is just a, absolute bore, don't go. Do something completely different. Do a quilting cruise. Do a small retreat, like at John C. Campbell Folk School or something like that. I just think there's so many different ways to reinvigorate and get that energy back more than anything else. So yeah, that was just a funny observation. Met a lot of super sweet people. Really, really had a good time with that. Got lots of hugs, and it was really interesting. I'd say that my biggest challenge doing demos at Grace Company booth is I never really knew what people wanted from me. Some people came up and had no idea, like they didn't know me from anybody at the Grace Company booth. They just thought I was this weird girl wearing a funny sweater, because I did finish my sweater and I wore it to the show. So that was really fun. But yeah, some people were just like, hey, can you just demo the rulers so I can see the rulers? And so that was pretty easy. I could just talk about the rulers and demo those and kind of just go through showing how the machine worked, how the frame worked, that whole 9 yards. Some people would come up and it would be hugs and, hello, my quilting friends, and that whole 9 yards. And then some people were kind of in between the two. So I think the biggest thing that, if I had to pinpoint like what I found exhausting, it was trying to read everybody's mind. Like, what do you want from me? That was the struggle, because just based off of what people were saying and kind of how they were acting, I'd kind of just go off their cues, but some people are just really hard to read, and I would just kind of go, okay, well, let's just demo, and had a great time. I played a lot with rulers, and I played a lot with the Grace Unique 15R, and played around with the new Quilty. We have a Quilt Q Zone hoop frame. Played along with that. Had some good times with that. I was going to switch to the hole machine. They had a hole machine that I'm not familiar with, though, set up on the Q Zone. Because kind of the cool thing about the Q Zone is you can put any sewing machine that you have on it and just get the feel of moving the sewing machine versus moving the quilt under the needle, and that's kind of an advantage. But I got started and I was just getting some thread breaks, and kind of just had to be like, I was trying to talk to people, I was trying to demo, I was trying to troubleshoot the issues with the machine. And then I realized I can't do all of these things at once and not go crazy. And I had to switch back. I was on the Q-Zone hoop frame and the 15R, and I'm comfortable with the 15R because it's basically the same machine that I have. And so that was just a check-in for me, like, okay, I needed to just make sure that whatever I'm using, I just know how to use it. And that way I'm the best at demoing, I'm the best at talking through it. And that was just a personal aside for me as far as how that went. And I had a great time. It was fun to demo. It was fun to play around. I felt like I got a lot of practice, which is really great. I found some different struggles, even from my rulers, like the Super Slide ruler is 9 inches long. And if you position that vertical within the frame, and a lot of people were, it's real easy to have that pop up off the edge of the ruler base. And so I had to be real careful. Where I was right there, I could click off the machine or kind of push it away, or just put my hand on the ruler in case that happened. But that was just one of those things that I was kind of learning and picking up. And so I now feel like quilting rulers, even on a long arm, need to be shorter. They need to be smaller. It's still limited by how much space your hand can hold down, something that your hand is holding down. These huge rulers that are like 20-25 inches long, they're ridiculous, because the second you get them in place, they're going to slip, and you don't need that big honking ruler. If you're going to do some sort of repeating pattern, you need 1 or 2 repeats, and that's it. You'll move the ruler. So yeah, just observations that I picked up, and did a lot of learning, did a lot of playing. And that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that side of it. But like I said, it was just, the only thing that was hard was just knowing what people expected of me. And going back to that quilter that, that just seemed really tired and not really wanting to be there, didn't have any energy. Maybe that person had just kind of had that same struggle and had just kind of said, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to sit here and work on my own thing and kind of not necessarily ignore everybody, but it's not like they were really interacting all that much. I mean, sorry if I sound critical. It is like a little bit like seeing someone that you've been paying attention to them, or you just like them in general, and then all of a sudden they're kind of just a little disappointing, and it just makes you think. And it makes me, I am always wanting to reflect and reflect back on myself and how I'm acting, how I'm interacting with people, because I wouldn't want someone to get the same feeling about me. Certainly at the end of the day, you're probably going to get a tireder version of me. And so for the most part, when someone would come up to me at the end of the day, I'd be like, my brain is a little bit fried, but I'm so happy to see you. So made sure that was clear. It wasn't necessarily that, I was too tired. It was just simply that, I was starting to even mess up, my speech was even starting to mess up a little bit, because it's just tiring. It was a long day, up at, 7, I get up early, so 5:45, and then do the show until, I think it ended at 6, and then go out to dinner with everyone at Grace Company. So it was a long day. It was a long day. but it was a lot of fun. And just I learned so much just by observation, and I think this is something that's really important. And you might be wondering about the quilts. I really haven't talked all that much about the quilts, and I'll be completely honest, that was not a huge part of me going to Quilt Festival. While I'm interested in them, and I shot one picture of one quilt that I was really kind of like, wow, that was an excellent use of color. It struck me, and it was only a second place win, but it as I was kind of blazing through, I was on my way to lunch with a friend, and that quilt kind of stopped me in my tracks, where I was like, I've got to get a picture of that one. That is such a good use of color. It was also an excellent use of gradient fabrics. So I snapped a picture of it, and I also snapped a picture of who made it, so I can make sure to credit them in the show notes. But yeah, that was a really, really pretty quilt. The best in show was beautiful. The all of the wins, we kind of blazed by it, but I'll put it this way. I did show quilting, for years. That was my focus. That was my thing. And I, attended a good number of shows, not tons, and this was my first time at Quilt Festival. But I'll be honest, it's just no longer my thing. It's no longer what I'm interested in. And I think largely because I just got so burned out and bored of stitching quilts to death. And yeah, sure, I know it would be fast and easy or faster and easier on a long arm, but it doesn't matter. That super stiff, overly intense, let's slap a whole ton of rhinestones on it style, it just looks exhausting to me. I'm sorry if that offends you, but I just look at those quilts and go, man, that looks like a lot of work. That just looks really exhausting. I mean, they were gorgeous. Don't get me wrong. Absolutely gorgeous. Absolute, works of art. And I can't imagine winning, $11,000 for a quilt. That's, awesome. I mean, I'm sure the person that won the best in show, or the best, the best of all the best of awards, I'm sure they're having a really great day. It's just simply like my desire for going to Quilt Festival was just not the quilts. I think it's amazing. I think they're gorgeous, but that's just not my thing. Maybe it will be again one day. Maybe making quilts for show and that style will be my thing again one day. But that was something I talked about a lot when I was demoing for people. When somebody stuck around, longer than a minute, I would start asking questions. What are you doing right now? How many quilt tops do you have? Do you enjoy what you're doing? Are you feeling frustrated by anything that you're doing? And a lot of people said no. They were perfectly happy with what they were doing and the way they were doing it, and felt no frustration in their craft at all. Some people had been told by friends that they needed a long arm and they needed to come and check it out. And I was like, well, if you're not frustrated, I'm kind of like a bad salesperson. If you're not frustrated, if you are completely happy, then why are you going to shell out lots of money to change something that you don't need to change? That's my logic. I think if you're feeling frustrated by something that you're doing with how things are going, that's when you change something. That's when you make an investment. That's when you move to a frame, because that's the reason why I did. I switched and started getting interested in long arm quilting, largely because I was tired of that super, super dense style of quilting. I was wanting to, try different things. I was wanting to quilt quilts faster. I was wanting to be able to quilt for charity. And I have 2 charity quilts that are ready to be bound. Actually, one of them, the lines quilt with the channel locks, that one's bound and ready to go. I'm ready to donate that one. So that feels really, really good. But I could not even conceive of doing that before, when everything was being pushed through my home sewing machine. It just takes that much more time, right? So that was really my number one piece of advice for people. Anyone that stuck around and really wanted to, demo and hands-on time, and to talk about the machine and talk about purchasing a machine, really started diving into why and what they wanted specifically and what their goals were specifically. I met so many people that, just simply wanted to be able to quilt faster and not show level and by any means. Most people just want to finish their quilt so it can be used and enjoyed. And what I started saying was, the only reason to quilt densely is if you are showing off. The only reason to do intense, dense filler designs on a quilt is if you're showing off and wanting to enter a show and wanting to compete and wanting to win. That's it. It's really not one of those things that the average quilt needs in order to be quilted, In fact, actually, minimal quilting is better because it's going to result in a softer quilt. So that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to be, to just be listening to people and hearing, what they thought, what they experienced, what they really love to do with quilting. That was really good for me because, being here in the crafty cottage and stuff, a lot of times I'm guessing, like, I think people will like this, I think that they will like this tutorial. I think that you will like these blocks or, this idea. And it's a guess. It's all a guess. And it's a guess based on what I want to do too, So it was really cool to talk to people. And one quilter in particular was just like, I don't really like quilting. She loves to piece and has a super stressful job and makes herself come in and piece for 15 minutes every day after work. And it was like, well, that makes so much sense because that is your de-stressing time, And she's like, as soon as I start quilting, my shoulders start going up like this, like rising up to her ears. And I did hit start on the machine and made her steer it around a little bit. And she was like, as soon as she clicked the machine off, she let out this big gasp of air. She's like, I didn't breathe at all while I did that. So I didn't make her try it. But, clearly she doesn't like the quilting process. That doesn't bring her joy. That doesn't make her feel relaxed. She's got a stressful job as it is. So do what you love. Do the thing that really lights you up, that makes you happiest with your quilting craft. And then this is why we have this amazing industry and we have so many long armors that are basically, self-employed women and men that are able to quilt quilts for you. And that's the wonderful thing, is that we have this industry that allows, hobbyists and professionals all together, and, that there's enough quilts being made to support the long armors is such an awesome thing. And another thing we have to give ourselves credit for is there are so many entrepreneurs, like actual, hey, I invented this product. I have this idea for this product in my head and I really want to make it happen. And, that's how Grace Company started. I met the owner of the company. His name is Jim. And he's the son of Grace, the woman that inspired the company. And basically the story was really simple. She went out and bought a hand quilting frame made of wood and brought it home. And he took a look at it, and he was this teenage kid, several years ago, several decades ago, and took a look at it and said, well, I can build something better than that. And I could see that over and over and over again, through the entire show, as there's so many people that have taken a look at what's there and then gone, man, I can make something better than that, and then have done that. And that's just so awesome. I love the manufacturing aspect of it, the inventor aspect of it. And I don't really consider myself that much of an inventor. I mean, occasionally I'll look at something and go, gosh, that foot is so badly designed. I gotta break it to make it work better. But I guess that's an area that I should tap more into, of looking at, okay, I have a better idea. How do I manufacture it? How do I go through that whole 9 yards? I think a lot of the reason why I don't is because I'm just intimidated by the process. And maybe that's an area that I need to push myself more into. There was so many cool, unique things that you just don't see any other place than at a big show like that. So that was really cool. Just a lot of inventions, so many rulers, so many people making rulers to cut, rulers to quilt, rulers for everything imaginable, and that's really neat. It is definitely, ruler quilting especially is the hot thing. That's very evidenced by just how many booths that had large collections, large displays of quilting rulers and cutting rulers. A lot of times people will come up with a system, something that, some way, some method of cutting with a ruler, and then create a whole kind of line of different creative cutting rulers for applique, for piecing. Is neat. Really, really neat stuff. And that, more than anything else, just seeing the level of innovation, seeing how many different new creative things that I haven't seen before. And, I'm a business owner, and I have, distributors that are supposed to be connecting me with all of these products. But even still, I think some people don't do distribution. So therefore, I wouldn't see them. I wouldn't see them in those catalogs, in those places that, where I typically kind of depend on seeing new things. So yeah, all around really, really cool. I expected to see, it was really funny. There were things that I expected to see more of, and I didn't really see it. So based on just the sheer volume that cork has been being pushed by distributors, I expected to see a lot more cork kind of styled projects and styled things. Didn't see hardly anything. Like maybe one bag in the whole show that was really, cork, it was made out of cork. And that was it. So I don't know. That was just interesting. I did not see very much minky or cuddle or any of that kind of stuff, which I love that stuff. So that was a little surprising. I expected to see more of that. Yeah, it's just one of those funny things, you go in and even though I try and go in with a completely open mind, I still came in with a few preconceived notions of what I would see there. And then I was a little surprised. And it could have just been simply that it's Texas, and so they have a little bit more of the kind of country style browns, really rustic style booths. Maybe that's an explanation for why, that is kind of, that was more predominant than I think if that show had been on the East Coast, because I don't see very much of that. I don't see that many styles of stores on the East Coast, or at least in my neck of the woods. I see a lot more boutiques and bright colors and that kind of thing. Yeah, it was really neat. And as far as just being there and meeting people, and some people have been following for years, if you came by and got a hug or a hello, my quilting friends, just thank you so much. That was really delightful to meet so many people in person. I do want to do more of that. Again, 1 or 2 days at a time. Staying for the entire show would have really worn me out. And that would probably have been too much. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll be able to build up to that at some point. Someday, maybe. And it certainly made me consider doing a booth at something like Paducah, something like that. I don't know. It's something I'm thinking about. And again, embrace uncertainty, try new things, don't do the same thing over and over again just because, it seems to be working. I will say, and this is just kind of it was just something that started to disturb me the first day. And this was the Thursday. Just people would come by and then they kind of look at me like, kind of tilt their head like, who are you? And then they recognize me and be like, oh my gosh, I used to follow you. You're that girl that did all those free motion quilting designs. And I started to realize a pattern. Everybody was talking about me in the past tense. I know. It was just, it took me a little while and I started kind of, I'm still doing that. I'm now, doing long arm quilting videos too. And I encouraged a lot of people to come back by the blog and check out the new blog, how I've moved it to freemotionproject.com. But it was a little bit, I don't know, it just kind of made me tilt my head to the side and go, I wonder what's going on here. Why, so many people were referring to me in the past tense, as if I'm, not doing that anymore. And it did make me start to realize, okay, so what I've shared, free motion quilting designs every day, that whole 9 yards, that fits a certain niche. When somebody needs that and they want to learn free motion quilting, they come and they find the videos and they start watching them. And then they learn, or they don't learn, or they, master it or get a different machine, or they decide that they don't like it and they give their quilts to their long arm, or whatever happens. I fit that period in their quilting journey, and then they go away. So that was another thing I have to kind of think about. Like, okay, maybe doing more tutorials on a wider range, piecing in addition to, more piecing, more basic piecing, grabbing people right at the beginning of their quilting journey, just learning how to do baby quilts, that kind of thing. That might be another way of really being helpful and not fitting into such a little tiny niche. Although I love free motion quilting, I just kind of felt like, at 1,200 plus videos and 500 designs, we've probably kind of been there and done that, right? I've kind of covered that. So it was definitely just something that I was thinking about and observing, and I think it's good to be critical, and to say, doing the same thing over and over again is not going to work. I've got to continue to change and try new things and play around and, pay attention to what other people are doing, but then also at the same time, do my own thing. And I gotta say, going through that entire show, not a single booth had anything like my goddess quilts. And I've been thinking about that a lot, to be able to do master patterns. And I finally found a pattern printer that will print nice big sheets of paper. So I'm thinking about that, of moving to making patterns of my goddess quilts and doing master patterns, which master patterns are so much easier to create. And that's really the way I work. So teaching the way I work would also be nice too. So something I'm thinking about. And please don't feel bad or anything like that. It's just, this is just how life goes. People need you when they need you. And then when they don't, they kind of, they stop following because they don't need you anymore. And that's okay. But it's a reminder to me to continue trying new things and innovating and going to shows and getting in front of people and getting, reconnected with the quilter that I love, the hobbyist, the person that is making quilts for fun, just simply because they love it and they want to make beautiful things to enjoy, to put on their wall, to put on their bed, and it was another thing, was just remembering how many people, make 1 or 2 quilts a year. And to keep that in mind as well. Sometimes I'm seeing, quilt after quilt after quilt in these booths, and the sheer volume, if you thought about like, okay, making a quilt from every single vendor at Quilt Festival, it would take you a million years. It would be impossible. So of course it has to be, style. It has to fit the quilter style, what she wants to make, how, all of those little things, those little aesthetics that go into it. So anyway, large tangent there, but I think it was fun. I certainly learned a lot. I think that Quilt Festival gave me far more to think about than Quilt Market ever did. And I love that about it. I really think that professional quilters need to go to big shows like that more regularly. And maybe if you are going to Quilt Market, to also stay for Festival too, just so that you can see that side of it as well. I think it's all good. I really do. And it's certainly given me a lot to think about. And again, embracing uncertainty, trying new things, it's all good. And there goes another quilt block off the wall. This has been a lot of fun, and I hope that you have enjoyed this nice long preview of all of our beautiful blocks for 2019 and the Friendship Quilt Along. So I am going to finish shooting all of my photos, go inside, get them edited, and I am aiming to have our first block pattern ready for you on Thanksgiving Day. So I hope that you will come and check it out. You can learn more about the Friendship Quilt Along at leahday.com/friendship. So that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed hearing this recap of Quilt Festival. Next week, I'm going to be, like I said, going to Charleston and coming back. So, still more kind of craziness, but it's all good. It's wonderful to be so busy, and it's even more delightful to be able to spend awesome time with family and make a delicious meal. Can't wait. So until next time, let's go quilt.